It's kind of wonderful that there's this democratization where anyone with the technology, which many people have in their pocket, can make a
Mhm.
special. And I feel like the attitude that I hear sometimes is like, well, if everyone's making them, then are they really special? And my answer is, who cares? I mean,
Yeah.
make comedy, put it out there.
Going underground with Jessica Delfino. Today I'm going to be talking with Myq Kaplan, who I've known for a very long time. He's a comedian. He used to be a musician. He still is a musician, just not mixed with his comedy like he used to do, which is how I had originally met him when he was in a group called Myq and Myqa. Come on, let's go hear what he has to say. How's that for an introduction, huh? You are in a cozy hotel bed. Where are you, Mike?
I'm in a town called Champaign, Illinois.
Champagne is the champagne of towns, I bet.
Oh yeah, any problems I have here are champagne problems.
That is beautiful. I love that. I hope that you have a bottle of champagne that was brought to you by
Ha
someone.
ha ha.
That would be nice, right? They should.
Thank you. Yes.
They should provide champagne to all of their, especially their comedian guests, I feel like would be a good. Do you drink, Mike?
I don't, but if
Okay.
they brought it, I would still appreciate it.
You would hold the glass up anyway. What are you doing in Champagne? If I could probably guess, but
Oh yeah, I've got a show in about 2 hours, so I'm doing that. I'm eating food, I'm showering, and I'm sleeping. Those are the four main things I'll be doing in Champagne.
like most comedians, I guess that's a pretty typical checklist of things to do. Are you on tour right now? Is that fair to say, or?
Yeah, it's really funny. There's a comedian I like named Benny Feldman, and I just had him on my podcast, and I was, looking at his website to share information publicly about him, and so he has on his tour page, it says tour, and then all of his dates listed beneath it,
Mhm.
and at the very bottom, he says, I'm perpetually adding more cities. And a tour is a made up concept where you just string together different dates and say it's a tour.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, funny and resonant. So, by that definition, absolutely. I flew to Chicago on Thursday. I did a show outside of Chicago in Wisconsin, Janesville, Wisconsin, at the Comedy Cabin on
Mm.
Thursday. I performed in Chicago on Friday. I am here in the Champaign area. I'm performing at a place called Yellow and Co. Tonight, and then tomorrow I'll go back to Wisconsin. I could have called this the Not Perfectly Routed Tour because I go into Illinois, Wisconsin, Illinois, Illinois, Wisconsin, Illinois.
Like
When
a
I
pong game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to. The final date is at the Plus in Eau Claire, another place I'm returning to that I really love. Like all so far, two down and two delightful times, and looking forward to tonight and tomorrow. But the answer to your too long didn't read my answer. Your question. To make a long story long, yes, I'm on tour. Anyone is listening in Eau Claire, get down to the Plus immediately, or in the evening.
Yes. And it would be a plus if they got tickets maybe beforehand. Is the show
Oh
sold out
yeah,
or?
that would be A plus, is what I
Yes.
would say.
And they should
Yeah.
bring a plus one as well. That would be a plus.
I love it. Absolutely.
We've been texting since COVID, I'd say at least, pretty regularly, but I've
Sure.
known you for a long time. I've known you for years and years. We met in the New York City comedy scene back in the aughts, and here we are uh, decades later, still keeping in touch. Both of us are still performing, and you're still
Yeah.
putting out new work, and you have a new album out now, a new special. I don't know what do they call it? Album special? Music
I
film.
have, well, I guess since certainly in recent months, I have a few different things. So, in November of 2025, I put out a special that is called Rini, spelled Rini, named for my girlfriend Rini, with whom I created the special, about whom the special is.
I've
So
seen
it's
it.
about our relationship. And that is, I would say, a special in all meanings of the word. It is video and audio. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on the various streaming platforms as well.
You could
But
listen
it's
to it on YouTube
definitely
as well.
you can't, yeah, you can, only thing you can't watch it on Pandora, for
Mm.
example, but you could look at a picture of me and put it on, whatever you want to do. I think I was familiar with you and your comedy before we even met because I was an avid collector of comedy albums and I would go into, used record stores into the comedy section and you had one that must have come out in the early to mid 2000s at the latest. And I remember, I honestly, didn't matter to me if I had heard of the person before. I was just like comedy, I love it. So, and then getting to know you, I'm like, you're the person from the Unicorn CD, or what have you. I feel like there was a unicorn involved somewhere, or at least the
Yeah.
vibe.
On the cover,
Um,
absolutely. There was a unicorn.
and so, yeah, so I would, back then I feel like the comedy special was like, it was either only HBO or Comedy Central, or maybe like in the 90s there were MTV ones. Like it was always, the landscape is always shifting. But
Hmm.
now, I mean, it's kind of wonderful that there's this democratization where anyone with the technology, which many people have in their pocket, can make a
Hmm.
special. And I feel like the attitude that I hear sometimes is like, well, if everyone's making them, then are they really special? And my answer is, who cares? I mean,
Yeah.
make comedy, put it out there. For me, this is my second hour long special that exists in video form. I have a couple other half-hour specials, but I had one special come out that's an hour that was on Netflix and now is on Amazon. That was in 2014, 2013. 2013? I think I recorded
How many
2013,
specials
came
have
out
you put out
2014.
all together, like across your whole comedy business?
Sure. I'll say I think I have recorded around 10, maybe 11 hours of
Wow.
comedy.
Wow. Okay.
Uh,
A lot.
let me, so I've got Vegan Mind Melt, Meat Robot, Small, Dark, and Handsome, No Kidding, AKA, Reenie. Oh, then live between albums one, two, and three. So there's 9 recorded now. I'm going to be recording another one in a month or two. So almost 10 at this point, I think, unless I've forgotten any. I do also have other music albums, but those are the stand-up ones. And so, like I said, the 2 that are an hour that are video as well as audio, those are the ones that I would say are specials. Whereas the other album that I just put out, I would say album is still
It's still
a
used.
term in use.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I've heard of it. You've heard of it. When it's an audio only project,
It rings the
as
bell.
yeah, the one that just so in between my sort of like larger like themed projects, I've been recording albums that I call live in between albums, and so I've
Mm.
done 3 of those. One of which is now only behind the Sirius satellite paywall of where you can only hear it if you're driving at the right time. But Live in Between Albums 1 came out a couple of years ago, and Live in Between Albums 2 was exclusive on Sirius, but just became more available widely everywhere. That is the album, which I'll say, if you want to call it an audio special, go for it. It's called Live in Between Albums 2, subtitled Rocky Mountain High, because I recorded it in Denver at the Comedy Works.
Nice.
And but yeah, that is other Rini and that are the 2 newest
Okay.
hour-long pieces of comedy. And then also this week I did put out a new Don't Tell Comedy 10-minute set, which some people are like, ooh, a 10-minute special. I'm like, is it a
Oh.
special if it's 10 minutes?
Mm.
Sure, great, have fun. That exists out there as well.
Congrats. That's I would call you prolific. I would say that's how long have you been doing comedy altogether now? I would say since again the aughts, so at
Yeah,
least
I
a
would
couple
I
decades.
count it as 2002 is when I say I did perform at a comedy club for the first time in 1999, but I was not trying to be a comedian. I was a musician. I was being aiming to be a singer-songwriter that had some funny songs, and so I performed probably at a comedy club between 1999 and 2002, I would say like 5 times, like
Okay.
maybe once or twice a year.
Mm.
And then in 2002 is when I was like, I'd like to. I guess I've been doing comedy a little, but I'd like to do comedy, and that is when
A lot.
my
You'd like to do
purposeful,
a lot.
yeah, would like for it to be what I do, not just
Yeah.
for me to do
You'd
it.
like to put out at least an album every 2 years.
That's approximately what I'd like.
So, and I would say mission accomplished.
So far, so good. Yeah.
Now, what are you promoting here at the on tour? Are you sort of promoting this sort of mishmash of recent albums? Are you just kind of promoting your love of, being able to get on stage still after all these years and open up to new audiences?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that this tour is not necessarily motivated to promote something specific. Of course, I always do, I have, in addition to the albums and specials that I would love to tell people about, if people enjoy the shows that I'm doing, like you can watch more, listen to more, purchase more, stream more, download
Your,
more.
read your Substack, which you
Uh,
write
e-
regularly,
e-
and I love.
exactly. Thank you so much, and it is mutual. But yeah, I'm mostly, I would say, not touring to support something I've already done, but touring to create the next thing that I will record, which I'm aiming to
Ah,
do
yes.
in potentially when I go to Acme in Minneapolis in early May, where I've
Okay.
recorded a few different albums already
It's kind of
in
meta,
my
right?
years.
If you think you're like performing to make the next thing, which will be retrospective in a sense. So it's kind of,
Oh, yeah. It is, time is weird. I mean, it's
no.
only now, but yeah, absolutely. I right now am planning something for the future, which will allow people in the future of that to look back on the past of then, which was built up starting in the recent past of now, or at least,
Yeah,
who knows how far back you'd like to go. But
I love it.
yes, your
I love
point
that.
is taken and good.
Do you think that you're ever going to be doing any musical comedy again? I mean, it's hard to say, right, if you're never going to do something again, but is that in the future? Maybe anymore?
Uh,
I know you
Absolutely,
learned
maybe.
violin, right? You played violin for years and years,
I did.
and
And
it would be a shame to like just kind of throw that away, right?
yeah, and I would say I don't think I am at risk of throwing it away because I mean, here's the beauty is when I when I was in college, like so just a brief sort of chronology. I started playing the violin when I was 4. I didn't love it. I was made to do it. I started teaching myself guitar when I was 15. I wasn't made to do it. I did love it. I was going to a summer camp where I was like a music counselor in training, then a junior counselor, then a counselor. I would then teach guitar and also help out with like the choir and the orchestra and the a cappella groups. And there it was my choice, and I loved doing it. When I got to college, I purposely decided not to major in music because I didn't want it to become an obligation, something that I had to do because that was what I realized made me not enjoy it as much. But
Mm.
then I was like, I want to choose to be a singer songwriter as my career. But thankfully, I organically, accidentally shifted into comedy instead or in addition, such that sometimes I make the joke that like I'm in an open marriage with comedy. I'm married to comedy, but comedy is like absolutely like have fun with music if you want to. Like we can all be involved if we want to.
And
Like I
somehow
have
that keeps
made
you almost like more loyal to comedy.
I mean, yeah, and I love comedy in a way. Like, also, I'm now in a monogamous relationship of the past almost 10 years that I love being with this person. And before I was with this person, I almost could never imagine only wanting to be with one person. But this is the person that I do want to be with. And, we are the only romantic relationship that we have and are planning to have. But then I feel like the same way that I have comedy, but also music, I have this relationship, but also numerous platonic friendships,
Yeah.
numerous like close, dear friends who I'm super connected with, both in comedy, in music, in from my summer camp, from all aspects of life. And the reason I bring this up is I still make music plentifully. Like I have not like released a musical album
Hmm.
recently, or and I don't usually bring music to the stage in the form of an instrument when I'm doing comedy these days. Though if there is like a piano or a guitar in the building, I might, noodle around on it and have some fun. But I'm not focusing my main, creative energy into creating songs the way I was when creating songs was the only avenue of
Hmm.
creativity that I was interested in. But
Okay.
I do make a lot of music still with my guitar, with a viola that I have, and so I definitely still make music, and I think it's very likely that I think during the pandemic I did write and make and produce because I had a lot more time to do a lot more things. I made some funny songs then that I haven't released, but I just
Hmm.
have lying around and maybe will release at some point if I, sort of perfect them.
Good to know.
Uh,
I will
yeah,
I'll put that in my mind to like harass you about that at some point. Like maybe in
please.
years down the road, I'll say, "Hey, you ever gonna put those songs out?"
I will say one last thing about that. The thing that I love about music that is slightly different than the way I engage with comedy. Of course, performing live is different than, playing at home, but comedy almost can't be played at home.
Hmm.
But music can be played at home in a way that I could, people can make whole musical albums, whole musical careers
Yeah.
without performing live. And so
That's true.
I love that my live performing focus is comedy, and my at home
Art.
enjoyment
Yeah.
creativity involves a lot of music as well.
I liked what you said in one of your newsletters, how I think it was about Mitch Hedberg, how with jokes, they're not always repeatable and sort of singable, if you will, the way that music is. Like you can hear a song, you can hear it over and over and over a million times. But if you hear a joke, I don't know, after a few times, you're like, all right, I got the joke. I know that joke. I've heard it, and you kind of want to just go on to the next bit or whatever. And with Mitch Hedberg, he's like unlimitedly listenable in a sense with his like one-liners, the way that they work. So, do you think
Yeah,
that?
his be Yeah, because of his particular voice, his particular like vibe, I do feel like his jokes are in some ways more like songs. Like obviously the first time you hear one, you have the joke experience, but they do not devolve and devalue the same way that just a pure surprise joke that,
Mm,
like I mean, there's so many wonderful comedians who I can listen to and re-listen to. But yeah,
mhm,
Mitch has a special musicality to his way of speaking that even if you know it, you can like sing it along with him the same
mm.
way that you might your favorite band.
Do you think that Stephen Wright has a similar kind of skill, or is it just like a Mitch Hedberg thing, or is it a one-liner thing? Is it the art of one-liners that makes them retellable with such repeated ability, or is it just Mitch's style?
That's a great question. The shortest answer is I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
surely, like I said, there are other comedians that I'll say that I don't think it's necessarily one-linerness that does it, but more the spirit of like the persona. Because
Mm,
another person who I could listen to on repeat is Paul F. Tompkins.
mm,
And he is certainly a longer form creator than Mitch, but I think one thing they have in common is they both have voices, like literal voices, comedic voices, of course, but also literal voices that are uniquely really fun to do. Like
okay.
and are in some ways,
Like sort of with
yeah,
Jim Gaffigan, he has that too. The way he
absolutely.
it's
And it
like
could
a
be
little
different.
dog.
Yeah. For every person might have their favorites. Like everyone like has their favorite flavors of food. And
Mhm.
everyone has their favorite flavor of
Comedy.
tonality.
Yeah.
Like yeah, some people love the way that I sound, and some commenters on the internet might feel otherwise.
I've never heard of anyone saying anything like that. And if they do, I don't believe them. I don't think
Ha
that
ha
they
ha
actually,
ha
I think
ha
they're
ha.
jealous and they don't know the real you. Would you say that's the most personal comedy special that you've made so far?
It, I would say, in a specific way, probably. The album that I put out in 2020 was called AKA, and I would say up until that point, that one would have been the one that I felt like was the most resonant with, like, not only like jokes that I love telling, but also about like meaningful concepts that I like was happy to be engaging with about like what I truly, think and feel and believe. Whereas, not that I was like making things up in the past, but my first albums would have had jokes that were, about anything, about movies I like, about, maybe social justice issues that I cared about or personal relationships that I had, but sometimes just like words that sound like other words, absurdity, wordplay, all, and not to say that Rini or my more recent works like lack those things, but it's just
No, they don't.
more focused, and there's like a
Kind of a story
larger,
almost.
yeah, a theme at least, that sort of centers the whole thing. And so in AKA, it was, coming mainly from my, solo personal beliefs that I sort of have, amassed and evolved over the years. And then with Rini, having a romantic partner who is also artistic, creative, brilliant, kind, knows me, loves me, and also over the course of our years together has become like a valuable like sounding board and partner, and like, workshopping ideas back and forth, teammate. uh the fact that just sort of naturally the show Rini grew out of my relationship with and sort of, personal collaboration with Rini, to the point that it became this creative professional collaboration. And that is something that I had never experienced like that before. So I would say, in that way, Rini the special is truly special, because Rini the person and my relationship with Rini the person is truly special.
Aw, that's very sweet. That's not something you hear a lot of comedians say out loud. It seems like relationships with comedians are almost private, more private maybe than musicians in a way, because I don't know. It just seems like if a comedian has a family or children or whatever, I mean, once they get married and they have children, I guess they talk about their children more in their act. But until they have kids, it seems like family, girlfriends, it's not as much usually a part of it. And I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say it's because a lot of male comedians use comedy as a vehicle with which to acquire girlfriends, to get laid or to just, meet people after the show for fun and whatnot. Um,
Yeah,
so
I
maybe it
think
stays
that
out of the material.
I think that is an element, in some people's experience, for sure. I think another element is there are some comedians who are using their comedy to complain, either, in an exaggerated way or in a legitimate way, about, many things, including potentially their relationships. And so, I mean, I understand why, like, just usually just saying like I'm in a happy relationship by itself isn't a joke, isn't, the necessarily the fodder
Yeah.
that most comedians are striving for. But we're out there. Like Josh Gondelman is another, I think, perfectly like in love with his wife, has material, like has like anti like the archaic trope of the the dreaded mother-in-law material. He has like material about how he loves his mother-in-law. I
That's
think,
so funny. I've tried to write material before about how happy I am, and I'm just like, nobody wants to hear this.
haha. I think, well, I think that's a good way in. Be like, I'm trying to write about being happy, but no one wants to hear it. That's a good complaint to share. But there's others, like Gary Goldman is another example of somebody who is happily, in a marriage that,
He
when
did
he
come to
talks
mind as
about.
well. I love Gary. He's one of my top faves.
Yeah. Liz Glazer is another dear friend who is happily married and does now, talks about her relationship with her wife and their child in ways. I think so. I think it's like, maybe a more modern, go back far enough. You've got Take My Wife
Take my
Please,
wife, please. Yeah.
Henny Youngman and all of those, vaudeville era and beyond comedians who were
Mhm.
like, the whole thing is like, yeah, you complain about your spouse
Yeah,
and that's what we do.
that's what we
Like,
do. We try to get away from them. Yeah. That's why I'm here.
but
That's why I'm out right now on this
But
stage.
yeah, I think that younger, like that more modern comedians, more, nuanced people who want to actually discuss their, real experience and not just play a character. Not that there's anything wrong with playing a character, but there's people who really want to reveal. And like, obviously, like no one's life or relationship is like quote unquote perfect. Like there's always things like there's material that I have done about, miscommunications or disagreements
Hmm.
that we've had. But the underlying theme is always like one of gratitude and love that
Yeah.
I think can be present.
I get messages from you sporadically and you're just like, "Hey, just wanted to say I love you," and it's like such a nice and random and unexpected but always delightful thing to receive, especially because the interesting thing to me, Mike, is that we've always been friends and friendly, but I never really considered myself to be like a close friend of yours. So when I started getting those text messages, and it really happened, I would say, during COVID, it was unexpected, but it was also really meaningful, and I assumed that probably there are a lot of folks out there who were in the same boat as me. Maybe they weren't like your bestie, but were someone who you had been along the way you've known and seen regularly, and you started sending them text messages, and you maybe noticed or observed that it created a maybe a relationship or a deepening of a relationship that was always there, but now it had an opportunity to really have a door open for it.
Absolutely. I think that's well put. I think, yeah, like I don't remember when I started doing this, like, per se, but for sure during the pandemic when there was like this abundance of time,
And
among other
fear
things.
and
Yeah.
confusion, yeah.
And a
Loneliness.
desire for connection
Mhm.
that like of course I have some friends that I talk to on a some daily, some weekly, some, however so often basis. But then there's also, sometimes if you're in New York doing comedy and you go out, sometimes in a week I'll be on 3 shows with the same person. I'm like, wow, you're my best friend this week. And like there are people who I met a year ago that I'm like, this is really cool. Like we get along. Like let's do this on purpose. Let's be friendly. And because that's what friendship it's not that there's just some like secret teacher's answer book, like turn to the back and be like, here's who your real best friends are. It's
Mhm.
like whoever, you connect with, like you can let them know. And if they have a similar feel, like definitely I feel like there are people that I've sent texts like I've sent you to who are like, I don't know exactly what to do with this because, the maybe I felt slightly stronger than they did. Like I wasn't, trying to come on strong and be like, "Hey, we're best friends and we're going to text and talk and,
Yeah.
do something all the time." But there's so many people that some people don't text back, but then when I see them live, they're like, "I always appreciate getting a message from you." Some people text back immediately, some people reach out to me first. Like and I think that
I'm
it's
sure it brings a big range of responses. I didn't even think about that, about the people who are like, well, I don't know, maybe mispleased.
but I think those are the a small minority,
I would
in
say.
my understanding.
Yeah, I
Like,
would say.
and so
I'm sure
I
that's
think that it's
an exception.
also like an element of it is that growing older as we all are, like when you have now, like I have friends that I have known for 30 years. I have friends that I've known for 20 years. I have friends I've known for 10, etc. And like the longer you live, the longer your friendships can be. And even if they weren't, like you said, you and I weren't the closest friends 20 years ago, 10 years ago,
Mhm.
but the fact that we have now known each other for more than 20 years,
And we're still
like
in touch.
yeah, and we have fondness for one another, even if not, our life story or, history going back to childhood or college or what have you. But,
Yeah.
you start out doing comedy anywhere, let alone like in the same place, or you move to the same city and you're like, we're here. You're kind of like, oh, like we're having a shared life experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes a traumatic experience, sometimes a thing you can only understand if you've done it and been through it. And so yeah, now we've known each other for that long, and that is substantial and meaningful, and I'm grateful and value it.
100%. Well, that was very well put. And you and I also both, were you in New York City for 9/11?
No, I grew up in New Jersey, but I was in college in Boston at the time.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I feel like there's also kind of a shared connection between a lot of the comedians who were in New York City during 9/11. But I could just be imagining that. I mean, I don't know. But I really
Yeah.
appreciate hearing all about, I'd love to hear more about Rini. I feel like this podcast could be 10 hours long and I could cut it up
Well,
into sections and it would be,
haha,
but we'll do it again. We'll talk again
please.
as we do, I hope. And have a great show tonight. Break a leg, as the kids say, and as I like to
Thank
say.
you.
I hate when people say good luck. Do you have any superstitions about comedy?
I don't. I believe that my comedy is powerful enough to withstand the dreaded good luck. People can say Macbeth in if I'm in a theater. You can I mean, look, I'm not gonna like walk under a ladder on purpose, but I'll pay attention. But I love a black cat, like my Rini's mom has, among other cats, a black
Yes,
cat named
I
Bart
have a
who is
black
like
cat too.
a Buddha. So yeah, I mean, I get, we have our quirks, but I appreciate whenever anyone does something with intention, be it say break a leg, as opposed to, I feel like sometimes like my mom will say break a leg, but not really. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate anything that is well intentioned. I appreciate. So I appreciate you
And I
as you
appreciate
are.
you. I don't know what I'm doing right. I'm milking a cow sideways. I have no idea.